you playing?
Hello, and welcome to What the Bleep Are You Playing? A podcast where we play a game many times bad and tell you why the bleep we played it. I'm Sean, who can't turn. This is 5th place Thomas, and Mason, who finally is the best at something. And we played... Forza Motorsport.
Welcome to my world.
So let's just
Thomas has a dead face.
let's just get this out from the beginning.
Vroom.
I like racing games. I'm not great at racing games. I am exceptionally bad at realistic simulating racing games.
I got to see that firsthand.
There's a reason I'm not. There's a reason I don't race my cars.
Honestly, he said that, and I was like, nah, he's just being humble. He's going to be at least competent.
No,
I'm shocked.
I'm really bad. Like, legitimately, I am really, really bad at them. I think they're fun, and I had fun playing this game. You'll hear me talking about it. I'm also just really, really bad at it. Thomas is slightly better than me.
Yeah, emphasis on the slightly right there. I fuck around too much is my thing. Like, I would never be a proper race car driver because Sean would crash, I would crash, but I'd be more like Ricky Bobby. I'd just be fucking around the whole time. So
it's like the racing equivalent to like being a kid playing soccer and just picking daisies while everyone else plays.
Yeah, no, I'd be like, this is a $300 million car, whatever. I'm taking it for a fucking stroll. Fuck this shit. Taking it on my Sunday drive.
So something interesting going into this. This is actually the first time I had played Forza. Not really being an Xbox person for the majority of my life. I've had different on it. But honestly, kind of the racing simulators, I kind of stopped post Gran Turismo 2. Because that's when they started to get too realistic, and I was not good at them.
See, this is really interesting because I brought this up when you told me this the first time. This is where like you can see the divide very clearly because you said you stopped at 2, right? At Gran Turismo 2. I started with Gran Turismo 4,
which I said Gran Turismo 3 is kind of the one that really took off and made like the simulators really realistic.
I think at this point, the Gran Turismo franchise is still the highest-selling PlayStation franchise.
It wouldn't surprise me because there's always been one at launch.
If not, it's like top 5.
It's one of those. It's without having like a mascot character. It is one of the like.
And what do you mean? It does have a mascot car.
Without having a mascot character, it's probably it's probably the highest grossing PlayStation franchise, highest selling for PlayStation.
It's definitely
franchise.
up there, regardless.
If only for the same reason that it's like, what do you mean Madden 25 sold 12 bazillion copies this year? Like, there's always people who buy those.
I think it might be with exclusive. It might be exclusive title type of thing that's only on one system. And part of that is, while a lot of people maybe. You'll see on the online, well, do we really need another Gran Turismo game? Yes, they sell a bazillion copies. Yes. People love Gran Turismo, and as there are 9 Forza Motorsport game copies, titles.
8.
Turn Studio has made 9 games. That's because there's both 6 and 6 Apex.
Oh, I forgot about Apex.
So there, yeah.
It was like an expansion type thing. It wasn't really a new game, but
it kind of is because
it's similar to Onimusha Genma, where it's the same game but it's repackaged. It's given more content.
Yeah, that's what it on that. So anyway, there are 9 Forza Motorsports, and which is crazy that how many there are more Forzas there are than Gran Turismos, considering Gran Turismo almost had a decade head start on them.
Yeah, because Gran Turismo is only on like 6 or 7, right?
Yeah, around that amount, because it depends if you're counting some of the like the smaller little bits, but
No, but I'm talking about like
their mainline stuff, because they took for between 3 and 4 was a huge gap. They took a long, and 3 took a long time because 3 was not a PlayStation 3 launch, if I remember right.
yeah.
Are you looking at me?
I'm just trying to remember. It's more I don't think it was a launch. It was meant to be, but I don't think it was because they kept delaying, because they kept working on it.
Right.
Because Gran Turismo is one of those that takes a long time. We talked a lot about Gran Turismo in the beginning of this podcast about Forza.
Well,
but
I think the reason that's like because that's the one that everybody like knows about, and Forza in a way is kind of like the underdog in that way. Like we were talking about it earlier. You brought up talking about the developer turned 10 when they made this first game. This was in 2005. I would have been 2. This was in 2005 when they started. The head director was directly like, we are directly competing.
Oh yeah,
with
this series was created to be the Microsoft competition for PlayStation and Sony's Gran Turismo. It's a good point for the development here. This game was announced in 2004 at E3, and then it took almost 2.5 years of work to get it made.
Sheesh.
It was delayed 3 different times its release. It was initially supposed to come out in December of 2004, then to February 2005, then to April 2005, and when it was finally released in May of 2005.
And that was a lot of Animal Crossing they played.
Yeah, let's be honest, that was Diablo 2.
So
that was a kind of an inside thing. We were talking about the developer was like,
because the developers they actually took a lot of developers from Nintendo, specifically Pokemon.
Yeah, which was really interesting considering, like, if you were thinking to take from Nintendo franchise, which one am I going to take for my racing game? I'd be like, who's doing like Mario Kart, or maybe somebody who worked on F-Zero back in the day, or any of those. No, Pokemon.
Which makes me just want to see like a mod of Forza or Gran Turismo with the people in the helmets and whatever, but it's a super close up on the helmet the whole time. You don't see anything, but when the car stops and the guy steps out of first place, it's fucking Pikachu in like a little racer outfit.
I was gonna say it's the picture of the Diglett like underneath the ground, like it's the big muscular Diglett in the cars.
That's incredible.
But they were from Pokemon, and they played a lot of Animal Crossing and Diablo 2 on the development, which, look, I don't know. There's a lot of delays. I don't know if this was actually as cool as it sounds, but it sounds like they had a rad time developing this game.
I was going to say, knowing video game development, it probably was hell at points, but I'm going to be perfectly honest. If your main memory from it is, we played a shit ton of Animal Crossing and Diablo 2.
A couple other really fun development things on this is Forza and Microsoft, with the Xbox Live stuff, they teamed up with EB Games. This is before EB Games was bought out by became GameStop.
Okay.
And they provide 25 kiosks with games that could be played online. These were the Xbox Live titles, so you could go up to a kiosk and play Xbox Live games. This was one of them that was displayed and playable on it, and that was huge. So you could go into an EB Games, you could play on a kiosk, you could actually play the live titles against other people with the games.
That's really cool.
It was legitimately, it's a really cool thing, and it was
kind of. I mean, I know why.
Great marketing, legitimately great marketing.
I know why they don't have it today, because money. But could you imagine if you go into GameStop and it's like, here's your PS5 and you can play Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 online, like just play a couple matches or something like that, or play Gran Turismo fuckery Part 17.
Not to talk about former business attempts that I've had, the idea of a video game, coming in and playing a video game, renting a game for an hour at a location and playing it at that location on a TV and things like that. I think there is a market for it. This kind of shows that, like, that was a really cool thing. Now, again, 2004 versus now, there is a lot of difference. But the idea that, like, hey, you went to a game store not just to, like, check out the games, but you also got to kind of demo a lot of the games. I'm old enough to remember the Walmarts and Targets having, Game Boy Advance to hook up with the newest Pokemon sitting there, and you could play for a while and realize what chucklehead came in and named all the Pokemon Fuckboy,
Wow.
But it definitely is a really interesting marketing tool, and with how popular Forza has become, and I think probably in sales, probably Gran Turismo. I didn't have the numbers, but I'm going to guess Gran Turismo is probably still the better seller overall.
I mean,
Yeah.
But because of how many there are, Forza might be actually the bigger name at this point.
I was gonna Well,
Gran Turismo did just get a
has
movie.
I was gonna say one of them has a movie, which means I like Forza more automatically because it doesn't have that obnoxious trailer that was replayed like in every fucking movie.
man.
But I really think the development.
Racer, I want to kill myself.
I really like the development of this game and the interesting things that they went through, but also just the people they brought on. We didn't get to experience a ton of the soundtrack because it was an Xbox. It's a lot more customizable. But what we did was like, oh, that soundtrack's really good. You know who composed it?
Who?
Junkie XL.
No way. No way. Wow, so we went from Forza to Batman v Superman. Kind of a downward trajectory.
Well, then he went to King of the Monsters, I believe. Didn't he?
What's that hit?
Yeah, I believe.
Oh,
that
wow.
was him.
Okay, so, a downward and then an upward.
I thought it was him.
No, he didn't do King of the Monsters. That was
Or was
Bear
McCree.
Yeah,
That's
Bear
what it
McCree.
is. I don't know.
How I know that is just amazing.
I don't know why he did something else other than Batman v Superman.
He's done a
oh,
bunch.
fuck, it's Suicide
He did.
Squad.
No, Junkie XL did Mad Max.
Ah, that's what I was thinking.
Fury
Oh,
Road.
yeah.
But anyway, the other thing about the development in this is that they worked a lot on the AI. There's a lot of artificial intelligence and that learns in this game, that picks up on your habits and things like that and helps you with it. And while we didn't spend a ton of time, again, I'm really bad at this game. So like,
Yeah.
there was, some of this,
You
some of it,
can't overstate that enough.
that's true. So we didn't get as much experience, but like this game revolutionized a lot of the AI involved in racing games,
Right.
And what they developed and what they created during this. This franchise. It cannot be stated how impactful this franchise is, despite it being kind of the one that is the little brother to the big simulator that is Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
So kind of going into like my own experience with the Forza
Yes, please,
franchise,
Mason.
because this was the game that I chose, because this is actually, I think, no, this has happened before, but this is one of those games that I picked that I hadn't played before.
Because you're a big fan of the series, but not necessarily back to the OG.
Because when we got our 360, fun fact, I actually wanted a 360 because of Forza. But when I
That
got
checks
it,
out for you.
I started with the third game, Motorsports 3, and then I ended up getting the game that I actually wanted. My parents ended up getting 3 for me, confusing it with the one I wanted, which was 4. So I had that one. And the whole reason I really wanted that game is because when that game came out, I was really huge into Top Gear, from the UK TV show, and that game specifically, the fourth game, started what would become through the franchise a really close relationship with Top Gear the show, with the test track being in almost every single game after that. The recent one doesn't have one. Don't even get me started on that. But they had a very close relationship with that show, which meant that the games had a really close relationship with me. So I played 4, and then I skipped 5 and 6 because it took a while for me to get an Xbox One, and then I got 7. The Forza Horizon series is a different story. That I've played and completed every single game, at least the main story of every single game. So that I have a much more continuous relationship with. But kind of going into this game, and with my own experience from playing those games, and also having before that even played a few of the Gran Turismo titles, the thing that I like about one of the things at least that I like about Forza is that it has its own style when compared to Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo is very like I'm trying to think of like how to it's very like high maintenance. Everything feels like clean, and everything's like, it's like a perfectly curated experience. Forza feels more like realistic in a way, like gritty, like you're actually going through like the career of a racing driver, whereas in Gran Turismo it does feel more like a simulation, at least from my perspective.
Yeah.
And
can see it.
going in with that mindset into this game feels so much like it's trying to copy Gran Turismo, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because the Gran Turismo games are great. So why wouldn't you want to copy from those? But at the same time, it takes away from the game having like its own distinguished identity in a way.
Well, interestingly enough, before we kind of really dive fully into the gameplay, I figured I'd talk a little bit about the reception of this game. Incredibly well received. Legitimately across the board. 92 on Metacritic. It's nines and a halves across the board.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think IGN gave it a 9.5, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. That's the one score that I remembered.
You know, Game Zone 9.5, Game Informer 8.5, Electronic Gaming Monthly 9.5. But actually, on the it appeared on the cover of June 2004 issue of Popular Science, and the reviewer of that praised the game and said, basically praising it, saying that it was the best, most realistic console racer ever made, even more than the one that had just came out, Gran Turismo 4.
Wow. And you know what? I'd have to go back and replay Gran Turismo 4 just to remember everything about it. But I did play it a lot when I was younger, and you know, kind of like, if I'm trying to reach back with my experience with Gran Turismo 4 as much as possible, it does still have like a little bit of that arcadey feel to it. A little bit like the thing.
I didn't notice the arcadey, but also, you know, bad.
The thing that I really didn't like about playing that game is something that it's a really small thing, but it's something that
Mason
nitpicking? No.
Mason has never nitpicked a video game ever.
Shut up. Anyways, but it makes a world of difference. In Gran Turismo 4, when you're driving, the camera is directly behind you at all times, which means that if you spin out, that camera spins out with you.
I love that.
See, I don't, because that makes it that it's very disorienting. It makes me dizzy. It makes me dizzy.
If you're spinning out,
disorienting is the word.
Yes. So when I play Forza, the way that it, like, when the car can turn and it like can go full around, but the camera's still pulled back and you can see it flipping around, I prefer that personally. And yeah,
Mason's like, I don't want realism in my simulator.
Well, I mean,
I'm just messing with you,
right? But yeah, that is like, it doesn't. Gran Turismo 4 doesn't quite feel like as realistic as Forza does. Like, good example of how like not really realistic Gran Turismo 4 was. Tying it back to Top Gear again. Yes, I love that I can keep talking about the show. I'm gonna make you guys watch an episode.
For Christ's sake!
No, you're gonna trust me. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. Trust me. It has basically nothing to do with cars.
I've seen a couple eepisodes of Top Gear before.
So there was a segment that one of the presenters did in an episode where he went around a track in Gran Turismo 4. He was in a blue Honda NSX 2004. And he took it around Laguna Seca, a track that's also in this game, in Forza Motorsport. He took it around Laguna Seca in the game, and then he got a real version of that car, went to Laguna Seca, and tried to match the time. And what he figured out is that the track in Gran Turismo isn't entirely accurate, and the way that the car goes around it isn't entirely like the opening curve in the game. You could take it flat out. In real life, he had to let off so that he could get around it, and it's little stuff like that makes it not as realistic. Whereas Forza, it felt like, yeah, this is, of course, it's 2005. It's not going to be perfect, but I think this was as close as they could get to perfect racing physics in 2005 as they possibly could.
Fair enough. I'm going to take your word for it. Let's jump into some of the gameplay here, because we'll just start off. Look, I like games where I can drift really well. It's no surprise, Tokyo Drift is one of my favorite Fast and Furiouses. So, but
deja vu. I've just been.
That car is actually the initial D car is actually in this game.
This, I as said by the name, I can't turn. I cannot make a turn to save my life in this game. I cannot make a turn to save my life.
This was the thing. I don't know if this was... I don't remember it being in 4. I think this might have been a thing that this game introduced. Even with, like, the guides that line through that turn red when you're supposed to brake.
So, we know that when I play fighting games, I don't like to block. Do
So
you
racing
assume
games
I
you
like
don't
to brake?
Okay, this is where I think playing some of the newer... I think you'd be better, actually, at some of the newer Forza titles because there's an auto brake function that brakes for you, so you don't even have to do it.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know
sounds awful.
It's not great, I will admit.
Yeah.
If you're just starting out playing the game, it's pretty nice because then you...
Did they do that in Horizons?
I don't remember it being a thing in that game.
Okay.
It might have been. I don't.
Because I remember playing a realistic racing game. I don't remember what one because I'll be honest, they all blend together for me at a certain point.
That's fair.
I mean, kind of. When it's an actual racing, they all blend together. I can tell the difference between Forza Horizons and Forza Motorsports. Obviously,
Right, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not a fucking idiot.
Right, but when it's like simulation racers, they
yeah,
all kind of.
and I forget which one it was, but one of them had auto brake on for by default. And literally the first thing I did after my race was I went to the options and turned that shit off because I hated it.
But it's great. But it's a great feature if you're like Sean or if you're like I was when I first started playing and you're not good at these games. That it actually stops for you, so you don't even have to worry about it.
See, maybe it's the fighting game player in me, but I don't want all right, now use this to help you get better at the game. Then you can turn it off. I want break your fucking teeth in on this steering wheel. Then you get better at the game, you stupid pussy. That's kind of what I want in the game. That's
what's great about the newer Forza games is that if Sean were to try to play now, he'd be great at them because they basically drive themselves. So
and all of that,
I will say, I do like drifting in this game. I wasn't great at it, obviously.
Mm-hmm. I was really bad at it.
But I managed to get a couple off, and I liked drifting because it reminded me of Driver.
That's fair.
And that's my realistic driving series. I fucking love Driver. I'm dog-ass shit bad at it, but I love Driver. And one of my favorite things to
Driver
do...
3 rocks.
Yeah.
The one where they went away from a lot of the stuff.
The one where it has less driving.
Where they were like, "Hey, that GTA is really popular. What if we did a theft auto?
What if we did a GTA?
What if we did a theft auto?
What if we did a theft auto in a grand fashion?"
But I go back to Driver 1, and one of my favorite things to do in that game was actually just drifting, because drifting in a realistic racing game, one of the reasons I do go back to them, even though I'm not the biggest fan and I'm not that good at them, is because when you can drift, it feels really fucking good. And this game reminded me a lot of that in Driver, because when you hit it just right, it straight up feels like something out of the main inspiration for Driver was Bullet and that car chase. So you really feel that, and you do kind of feel it in this game. Not to the same extent, obviously. It's trying to emulate an action movie versus trying to emulate, actual racing.
Right.
But you do feel just that heavy car just turn slightly, and then boom, you get it perfectly, and you can zoom off.
The drifting is still a thing. I've been playing the newest Forza game that is also just called Forza Motorsport, and something I've
when you have enough titles, you just start going the same. You go back to the original and.
But the thing that I was immediately reminded when I played the game is that for me, drifting in simulation racing games is really hard for me.
Yes,
it's really hard for me to do that. Now in the Horizon games, it's actually a lot easier because the Horizon games are kind of like a perfect blend of simulation racer and arcadey feeling controls. So it's a lot easier to drift.
Which is kind of where I like the Horizons games a lot. So.
Oh yeah, those are great games. I thought about putting one of those games on my list, but it's the 360 games. They felt like a little too recent, whereas this is 2005. I think that's enough.
I think.
I know we've played games from 2012 I wanted to.
I think this was a good starting point for this franchise because of what it has become. and how far it's in its 18 years of existence that it's it's built and had a ton of games. It's a very popular franchise. So I think this legitimately was a good starting point for it. Also, I just happened to own it, so like that's also one of the reasons. Mason's like, I think I want to do a Forza, and I was like, I looked at my collection. I go, well, I think I have the original Forza. All right, let's do it.
Yeah, he said it, and I was like, you son of a bitch, I'm in.
It was like, one of those that because when I bought my Xbox, I got like just a crap load of just random games, and I was like, hey, I think I have the original Forza.
Sean's like, I got the original Forza. Mason's like, yeah, let's play the original Forza. I'm like, but I didn't play 1, 2, or 3 as a... There I pulled a Mason.
That was a Mason pun. It took me also a second. I was like, what do you mean it was the first? Oh, wait, I got it.
You said that, and then I was like, do I want to laugh at that? Do I want to encourage this? And then...
So
it's your hobby, bitch.
I know.
Something.
There can only be one.
I don't plan on making too many more. So.
One of the things I think they did really well with this game is it is perfectly built for the Xbox controller.
Oh yeah, those triggers are sick.
It is perfectly built for the Xbox controller.
Yes.
Like that. Like, are there some things I'm like, maybe I would rather have some of the button placements a little differently, but when you are immediately making your gas your right trigger and your brake your left trigger, like, yeah, that's perfect.
That's yeah, and all of the funnily enough, now that I've played like a Forza game on every Xbox console, like they all have the perfect triggers for those games.
It's legitimately.
I mean, I don't know if this is an unpopular hot take. I guess the Xbox has the best controllers. The Xbox consoles have, for years, in my opinion, had the best triggers.
I think. The trigger, absolutely the best triggers.
I said controllers, but I meant triggers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, we've talked about this with a few other of the games. Remember, the Xbox in a lot of ways, because Halo was its defining game and what it basically launched the console in a lot of ways. Of course, everything was built around those triggers.
Yeah.
So.
Whereas Sony was like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And then they're like, what if we changed it entirely? And everyone was like, no, we don't want a boomerang.
We don't want the boomerang controller, Granddad. We didn't want it with the multi-tap on the PS1.
And then Nintendo was like, would you like jelly beans on your controller?
No.
Done.
Granddad.
And I'm also like, yeah, I do love that controller. It's my favorite controller. Button shape's a little odd, but yes, I do love you.
Or they were, or when they were like with the 64, they were like, well, the PS2 has 2 prongs.
Well,
how can we improve?
Incorrect, because the 64 joystick came first. So
but still on the PlayStation controllers, they still had those 2 prongs on the side. For
the 2 sides on it.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. I was
it was like the PlayStation has 2 prongs.
I was like, this would be another episode where I corrected you on
okay,
that.
so no, really odd N64 controller tangent. I watched a video on an N64 platformer, and the guy actually had a really good point why the controller is designed the way it is. It's designed for various types of controllers for various types of games.
Yes.
Right.
Because I didn't put it together until he watched it, but he was doing a 2D platformer, so hey, he holds it like a regular controller, but then a 3D game, you hold the middle button because you're using the analog stick. And for some reason that clicked with me. So I was always like,
there's
I'm a fucking idiot.
Why not a good tangent into 64 controller, but a little bit. But there is a lot of like uses to it. The problem is that it's just kind of ugly, and not everyone figured out how to use the controller as well.
It's also, that's because the most popular game other than like Mario 64 was Zelda. Mm-hmm. And Zelda, you're supposed to control like this. You're supposed to hold the middle part, and then you hold the right side. But the left side you still use for items and shit, so people constantly had to go back and forth.
I just hit the GoldenEye and things like that. You were holding it and doing a lot. So again, I actually don't hate the 64 controller, but also I understand the people who do really have a just internal rage at it.
I guess controller tangent. I have never picked up a controller that I absolutely despised. There's been ones that I didn't like.
Have you ever picked up the Philips CDI controller?
Have you, bitch?
I have actually. My brother. We had a Philips CDI for a little while. He almost.
Why?
So his best friends, his dad cleaned out his attic, or their uncle. I think it was their uncle cleaned out and was like, "Hey, there's a video game system. Do you want it?" And we borrowed it for a while. So
Why did they have it? How much disposable income did this family have to be like, hey, you know what we should get? A Philips CDI. Here is a mortgage.
It had. We played. We had both. We had the Zelda games on it, a fishing game, and a baseball game. That was all. So we had
Okay, well, the answer to your question is no. Obviously, I have not held a CDI controller because I have fucking respect for myself.
That's fair. Anyway, there's our controller tangent in the Forza episode.
Okay.
Because for me, I just don't have a lot to say. Mm-hmm. It's a racing game. It's a good racing game.
It's a very good racing game.
And I guess something I will say, the environments are fucking phenomenal.
Oh my god.
Especially for the Xbox, the OG Xbox, the environments are fucking great.
It is a gorgeous game. Like, I understand that, there are some, if you look off in the distance, there's a few things. But we were in one of the levels, and it had, the storm clouds. And I was just, and Mason was the one racing, and I was just watching. I was like, those are some of the most realistic storm clouds I've seen on this generation of
it's great.
And I was like, I understand this is probably just matte painting stuff in the background because they're not really moving or anything, but I am just in awe of how pretty it looks.
Probably my favorite one, again, Mason was playing because it was like, here, it's your domain.
We're let's watch Mason be good at something.
Yeah, and they were racing through a city. I don't remember the name of the level.
I think it was just New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right. But it straight up looked like fucking Gotham.
You're driving,
you're driving through. It's pitch black except the.
Oh no! Wait,
lights.
no. That was a shipping yard.
Yeah, that was the shipyard.
Right. But it looks like some out of a fucking Batman movie. Like you're just driving along. It's pitch black, but the lights are shining down. You're like, that's badass.
It was really cool.
Badass.
Yeah, dude.
The environments were great. The levels, legitimately, as Mason unlocked more because neither Thomas or I could really unlock stuff, or really put in the effort to actually try to unlock.
I didn't care,
but I
got 2 cars. That's what I need, baby.
But as you get more of the races, we saw they're really cool. But also the amount of cars in this game, and I understand that Gran Turismo is known for lots and lots and lots of cars. I didn't expect Forza from the beginning to have this many cars in its initial run.
Right.
Because it is a huge library across the board as well, and some really cool ones as well. I'm not a car person. I'm not my brain doesn't really work that way. But there were just there were multiple. I was like, oh, that's a cool car. That's a really cool. That's in a racing game. That's cool.
We all have our kind of things weird things. Well, not weird things, I guess, but
things that we like more than the others.
Yeah, I guess.
Things that drive our brain cuckoo.
But
yes.
In a good way.
But when we did the Bond tier list, hey, go watch that, plug. Mason brought up that I like wrestling, Sean likes anime, Mason likes music. That can also be Mason likes cars, Sean likes controllers and video game stuff, and
I do love controllers.
I don't know. I guess I'm the gun guy because I know more about them than
that's
you guys,
fair. But even in this game, you could use the Aston Martin. You could race in the
that alone made the game worth
it.
So.
That was awesome. Was I good with the Aston Martin? No, I crashed a lot and finished in last place. But
bring shame to the Bondy name.
But it was so cool to drive it. And something that I mentioned when we were running through the New York City level, it reminded me a lot of from the previous Bond game that we played.
From Agent
Under Fire, some of the racing levels. I was like, yeah, that's actually kind of similar look to it. If you just had more cars coming the opposite direction, you were chasing someone. This is just a Bond level.
Yeah, God forbid, playing a Forza Motorsports game, they just suddenly open fucking fire.
Actually, something good for this game is that the environments you could put into other games as well, but they did it with a racing game, and I actually think that really works for it.
I think what makes kind of a really good racing environment for me personally is when you can imagine yourself doing things other than racing in it. But racing through it provides this thrill.
Mm-hmm.
I think a really good example is Toy Story Racer.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Exactly.
Where, you these look like actual places that you could walk around. It looks like an actual arcade. It looks like an actual house. But you're not walking around them, you're racing around them, and that makes it more impactful for me. it's kind of why so many realistic racing games do click a certain spot with me. Like the Need for Speed games in particular. When you're blazing through a city at fucking 195 miles per hour, and it's a real-ass city, so you can imagine these poor rich people eating their croissants or whatever in France. In France, and then all of a sudden they hear and you drift through all the fucking tables.
There is something to just be said on that. Is like, while maybe me being a little more like, hey, I'm not good at these games, I don't have a lot to share, it doesn't mean I don't like these games. I very much enjoy these games, but like as Thomas just mentioned, in this sort of more, I say realistic because these next few games aren't that realistic, but the cars a lot of times are. I'm more of the Need for Speed or the Burnout. That's what I would play more than these games.
That's kind of my domain as well. I also, again, I bring up Driver. But Driver is less...
Bless you.
Okay, sorry. But Driver is less of a racing game and more just an objective-based game where you happen to be driving.
So, kind of, because you earlier brought up the car list, and kind of going back to that, I do like this game. I have had nothing but kind things to say about it, but there are a couple of gripes that I do have with it, and that is specifically
Who could have predicted that?
The car list.
Who could have predicted this?
Shut up.
If you have on your bingo card, Mason found a gripe in a game that Mason actually loves.
That Mason suggested.
Listen. Poe Nothing's perfect, alright?
Yeah, this game's not perfect. Where the fuck is Lightning McQueen? He's a car, right? I think that counts.
Yes, where is the cast from Cars in this? Oh man, we should play the Cars game. That's a great game.
On your list.
Is it on my list?
It's on your list.
Okay.
Spoiler alert for later this
I was
season.
gonna say,
Anyways,
you can cut that.
anyways, car list. So for one thing, they organize the cars by performance, by default, which is something that you can do in the later games. But in future games, by default, they're all organized by brand, which I prefer personally because I like a lot of, for me, playing the Forza games is kind of making my own fun and taking one car from one brand and one from another, putting them on a track at different times, seeing which one goes around the fastest, and that's kind of harder to do when it's performance sorted like that. There's also a lot of glaring omissions that I noticed, like car brand wise. Like there are no Lamborghinis. There are no Alfa Romeos. There's no...
Wasn't Lamborghini... Again, we're also against Gran Turismo at the time, and there were a lot of like the likenesses I think could only be used in that
I was gonna
game
say,
franchise.
I'm pretty sure they had like
there were a couple that they could. And again, we're talking about a startup game, first game in it. They maybe didn't get all the licensings and things like that.
That is fair, and that I guess I can.
And again, I may just be talking out my ass. I don't actually have any proof of it one way or another. That's just me guessing.
Right, and if that is the reason, I guess I can accept that. But the other thing, and kind of the thing that I was hoping that would happen when playing this game, is that one of the reasons why I want to go back and play some of those older Gran Turismo games is that the car lists in those games are freaking wild sometimes. Like in the fourth Gran Turismo game, you can drive the first ever car ever made. And race it around tracks. It only goes like 15 miles an hour, but it's still cool that you can do that. And I was kind of hoping that I would, like, going back and playing this game, I was like, oh, there'll be like some kind of weird out there, strange looking car with like wings coming out of wings and like side pipes that are like longer than the car itself. And there would be like some kind of weird cars in there. And there was like one maybe. And I wish there were more of those, like weird cars that you could...
This is a total tangent here. Has there ever been like a DC or Marvel superheroes racing game?
There was Gotham City Racers, but that's all I can remember.
Because you said weird racers, and I was like the Batmobile. Wait, has there been one where you could like the Batmobile versus like any of the other superheroes having random cars and
that one weird ass Superman jet that's a toy?
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
I would totally
the spider
play
buggy.
that.
I want a racing game where I can race the spider buggy.
Race the spider buggy.
Like, just give it, like, you know how Hot Wheels makes, like, each superhero into, like, different versions in their cars and things like that? I'm like, I want a racing game where I can race those cars. Anyway, that is a completely weird tangent.
That would be a licensing nightmare, though, I think.
Probably.
Whatever Hot Wheels Unleashed is doing.
Yeah. Anyway, this has been an episode full of tangents because while this game is awesome, I think all of us can agree this was a fun time. This was a
Yes.
good game. A lot of it. It's not necessarily my forte, and because I have little to no knowledge of cars, it is hard for me to sometimes be like, yeah, let me talk about engines and stuff.
It's similar to the Def Jam episode where, yes, it's a fun game, but we went on a lot of tangents that episode because the game is just solid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's possibly a hot take. Def Jam is not like this, but this game, it doesn't super excel at a lot. I mean, except the graphics and
Mm-hmm.
I'd say
If driving simulators is your thing, or like that, it's going to excel for you 110%.
and I think that's it. It doesn't excel for me in
Exactly.
anything, but that's my brain.
Mm-hmm.
So
And for me, who as I said, like once I got out of Gran Turismo 2, which is kind of like that's where they really 3 is where the realism started to really kick in, because they were no longer on the PlayStation. So that's where it really started to kick in, the realism, and my struggle with that. And so like this game, it's not gonna be the thing that I'm gonna seek out a ton. That being said, I really enjoyed this game. I highly recommend this game. I highly recommend, if you have an old Xbox, playing this game, because it is really fun. Playing it with friends, It was funny when we did some individual racing, and, Mason absolutely, I think, beat Thomas by like 4 minutes and me by like 4.5 minutes.
I was close to lapping both of you.
It was very funny how bad we got beat back to back.
in my defense, I stopped caring halfway
Oh yeah,
through.
oh yeah. And there was a point
Because I knew I was going to lose. Okay, that might be could be like, actually, I'm good at this game. I'm not. Mason was beating me by like 3 minutes, and I stopped caring, so he beat me by 4. So there you go. Okay, no, he was beating me by 3 minutes and 59 seconds, and then I stopped caring, and he beat me by 4.
there was a moment while we're racing that I was like, oh, I am only 45 seconds behind Mason. And then I was like, I'm doing awesome. And then the next checkpoint, I'm like, I'm 1 minute and 45 seconds behind Mason. What just happened?
Well, I think.
It's
Hold on.
fucking
Well,
warp drive.
But I was like, I'm actually driving well. I feel like I was like, maybe I lost a few seconds, but I'm still like not doing bad. What?
in your defense, in that race, you were in a Mustang GT, and I was in a Bentley Continental, which is a bit like racing somebody in shoes you bought from Goodwill versus racing somebody against somebody in a fresh pair of Nikes. You were gonna lose,
Mason.
even if you were good.
Mason, you could have been riding a unicycle and would have beaten him.
And I'm in the clown car.
Yeah, you're just. That's the thing, the circus racing game. Let's go, boys.
Let's go.
Aw,
But I think
jeez.
if you
get in the clown car, you're just throwing clowns out of it at other people.
instead of bananas like in Mario Kart, you're throwing clowns.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're just chucking a clown.
I think
Go, Bongo.
if you take anything from this episode, it's that this game is fun. It's just not 2/3 of this podcast's skill set.
Yep.
Yeah, and the 1/3 is skilled enough to make up for that.
Yeah.
Yep. See, I like doing games like I like finally doing because we've done so many fighting games, and I'm not like awful at them, but I am kind of. So being able to play a game that I'm good at on this podcast for once makes me happy.
Look, if anybody listens to this episode and then goes back and listens to our Agent Under Fire episode, in which Thomas and I are just
we are just baffled.
at how bad Mason was at Agent Under Fire, just go back and listen.
So how the turns table.
How the turns have tabled, or I think of when I was talking about that one level in Sonic Adventure 2, where I was like, I had to do this, and I spent 18 minutes on that level. That's what I think.
Let's see, when I think of Sonic Adventure 2, I think of you going, that level was easy, come on. I'm like, fuck off. Listen to that episode for podcast. Plug. I'm getting all the whoring out.
But on this podcast, we like to ask 2 important questions of every game that we play. The first one, how does it hold up?
Really, really well.
Really well.
And
A-okay.
and a lot better than I honestly thought it would.
Yeah, honestly, Sam, again, Xbox games tend to hold up pretty well as a whole because of the system. It's very similar to a lot of GameCube games hold up well too. And PS2 was a little bit longer in the tooth at times, and there's so many games on the PS2 that you are hit and miss. But a lot of the Xbox games, specifically the big Microsoft-made titles, hold up really well. Mm-hmm. And this one holds up exceptionally well, I feel like.
Yes.
There's nothing that I felt was like, oh, that's just the reason that's not very great. That's just a thing of its time, whatever. It was all just like, it's a good racing game. It's very realistic in what it is. The graphics are good. Everything looks great. Like, it held up well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Look, I got nothing, folks. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm genuinely like, I got nothing to add that it holds up well.
Well, I think the second question will be really interesting here. Would you like to see a remake or a reimagining in a modern setting of just this game?
Here's the thing. I love this game. It's great. I love this franchise. It's great. What would be the point? And I say that for multiple reasons. For one, we just got a brand spanking new Forza game. Mm-hmm. Why would you really want to go back and play the first one? Second off, if you really do want to play the first one, if you just want to play it that bad, I'm fairly certain you can play it across all of the range of Xbox consoles. It's not that hard to get.
That's fair.
It's not expensive.
It's not expensive.
It's not unobtainable. Mm-hmm. So why would there need to be a new version of this old ass game?
So here, I actually kind of agree with you on the majority of it, but also a little bit of counter. Would a taking this game and putting it into the new game, but all the stuff we have in it, just going back and playing it, but playing it in the modern graphics, might be kind of fun.
So that would just amount to being like putting all the tracks in this game and the whole car list and putting.
Honestly, probably better than another game. Yes, would be like a DLC. Like download the old Forza stuff as a DLC
for the inevitable 25th anniversary of Forza. Or
yeah, something like that.
Might as well.
Yeah, that's something I can see doing. Would I want a whole new game by itself? No, probably not. But
it's
also,
it's like saying, I want a remake of the original Microsoft Flight Simulator. Why?
I think there is an audience. I could say there is an audience. Like, let's say Forza 9 comes out.
It won't be titled that, but sure.
Yes, whatever. The next one in Motorsports.
FM9.
Yeah.
F9, the saga continues.
9 Forza, 9 Motorsport comes out, and they include for the 25th anniversary, and they include on it that you can also play the original game. It's not like updated very much graphically or anything. It's just an HD. It's on there, and you can play
like a
it.
bonus.
That would be cool.
Maybe add some online capability.
Yeah, there's some things you could absolutely do with it that would be cool. Do we need it as a full remake? No, that would not be.
You could do a here if they really wanted to bring back these older games. You could do like a Master Chief Collection type thing where you have the first 3 games in a collection with updated graphics and an option to go back to the old ones if you want.
In fairness, we have said that a lot on a lot of these games. Man, I would love 3 or 4 of these games put together. We've said the bundles would be kind of
we've gone back to the bundle a lot.
If you need it,
and
have that.
For me, it's kind of different than asking we did Call of Duty last season, the first Call of Duty game. It's like, would that be remastered or remade? That's different because Call of Duty has this thing, costs $9.99 at your nearest retailer. It's called a story, and Forza really doesn't, and that's by design. Obviously, I am not.
Right.
I am not bitching. How dare Forza not have this 60-hour RPG-esque narrative where Honda Civic has to drive into God's face or whatever? But it's just for me. I am not exactly sure if I would have this remade from the ground up or whatever, because I feel like it would be kind of inseparable. Mm-hmm. But I can see it being like what Sean said, when F9, Forza 9, Horizon 9, whatever, comes out, you include it on the disc as a bonus, add some online capability maybe, just because it would be very funny in 2027 or whenever the hell it comes out to be here's the online here's the online leaderboards for the first Forza game. That'd be funny.
Would be funny. An idea that I have here that will never ever happen, but an idea would be really cool at that time frame that if they really
Forza movie.
No, but if they released Forza, the OG Forza, here's my thought. They released the OG Forza on the PlayStation Store and the OG Gran Turismo on the Microsoft Store.
That'll never happen.
It would never ever happen, but that would be a really cool, like, hey, let's celebrate these franchises all across the board.
I'll tell you this. When that does happen, you can go ahead and take an aerial tour of the city on your flying pig.
I will. Again, I know it will never ever happen. There's a billion different things that are there, but that's just something that would be really cool, like that, because the two franchises all on it. I'm not saying the whole franchise is released on it, but they're releasing the OGs on their like streaming video game stores. You can only play it. It would be a really cool thing to support both of them. It's never, ever, ever gonna happen.
I was gonna say, while we're dreaming of things, I would like $1 million.
Money should be falling from the sky.
Yes.
Say it.
Say it. Say money should. I get that reference.
But that's Forza Motorsports on the Xbox. And what do you guys think? Do you like driving simulators? Are you better than me? Spoiler alert, you are.
Can you
but
drive
let
in
us
a straight
know.
line? You're better than Sean.
Let us know.
Hold on. If you are better, if you are worse than Sean, and you're sending us an email about how worse you are, get off the internet. You are a 5-year-old.
Well, that's just mean to me.
Damn.
Just really mean. Anyway, instead of being mean to me, how about you send us an email to bleepyouplaying@gmail.com. Which car would you drive to kill God? Let us know. bleepyouplaying@gmail.com. And if you'd like us to play a game, any racing game, well, you can. You can tell us to play a game if you subscribe on our Patreon, patreon.com/whatthebleep. You can do that on our Super Bleep Head tier, $15 a month, and you can tell us a game to play, and we will do it. And with that, I've been insulted this entire podcast, but maybe next time it'll go a little bit better, and we'll return Mason back to where they belong.
Next time you can take some shots at me, as it is intended.
As the good Lord intended, before we killed him with a Honda Civic. Burn it.